So I'm going to be working with AI, and I've asked AI to look at a list of 40 topic tactics. It's like asking this kind of question, using an analogy, using a story, using a joke, using pictures, using creative visualization, so on. 40 commonly used strategies to make talks interesting. That's the aim here. And then I've given 50 topics: mindfulness, gratitude, patience, resilience, and so on. And I'm going to ask AI to repeat its last question and see how the signal strength is as well. Hi there, could you repeat your last question and give me those two, the topic and the tactic?
Of course, the topic is gratitude and the tactic is narrative storytelling. You can share a story that highlights the importance or impact of gratitude.
Narrative storytelling. So this would be a story which features saying thank you very much and the effect of gratitude it has on the happiness of the key protagonist. On the other hand, we might have an alternative person who is ungrateful. So in this case, I would maybe tell a narrative story of a person who visits a guest house where traditionally they hold hands round the meal and say thank you for everything that they've noticed has been wonderful. All the preparation of the food, all of the nature, the sun rising, the fresh air, the nature around, the beauty of the environment and the establishing of the place by the founders, and the gratitude for being alive and being there. But this, when it comes to one person, we say to them, would you like to, have you got anything you'd like to be grateful for today? Their answer is no, I can't think of anything, I don't have anything. And this person typically is very selfish and notably grumpy, aggressive and attackful. And when you hear about their career history, it's full of storming off and heckling and throwing gossip and hate speech that people around them. And then you realize there's a very strong connection between people who are living very fulfilled lives because of their sense of gratitude towards their fundamental being, and then also people who are ungrateful. Their ingratitude is a great central core nature of their personality, and unfortunately they are having somewhat of a selfish life.
That's a strong example. You've highlighted how gratitude can positively impact one's life while showing the contrast with an ungrateful attitude. It effectively demonstrates the benefits of gratitude through a narrative story.
Okay, so hopefully we're going to move on and have two more now. As I say, we seem to be...
One colleague consistently expresses gratitude for small acts of kindness, like a thank you note for a cup of coffee, or appreciation for help on a project. Over time, this person's relationships with colleagues improve, and they gain support and cooperation, leading to greater job satisfaction and success. In contrast, the other colleague rarely acknowledges others' efforts and takes support for granted. This lack of appreciation leads to strained relationships, a lack of team cohesion, and ultimately less career advancement. The story contrasts the positive ripple effects of gratitude with the negative consequences of ingratitude in a professional setting.
Good. Could we have another topic and another tactic suggested for working with it, please? Another challenge.
Certainly. How about the topic of mindful communication and the tactic of contrast? You can explore how mindful communication impacts relationships by comparing it to communication that lacks mindfulness.
Could you give me another two, but don't give me a suggestion about how to do it? That's actually half of the idea here, is that I'm going to try to practice methods. All right, so give me another topic and another strategy.
Sure. How about empathy as the topic and case study as the strategy?
Okay, so a good example of empathy and a case study. So empathy can be where a person knows that another person has needs. Empathy is at the root of rescues. For example, empathy was a case study could be the rescue of Jewish children from Germany, particularly in Berlin, at the opening of the Second World War, when it became very clear that the Nazis had an extermination program starting. So there was a project which took children on trains to the United Kingdom that rescued more than 10,000 children and brought them to safety of the United Kingdom, free from the barbaric, sadistic aims of the Nazis in that time. So this is a case study of empathy that simply recognizes another person is in danger, has needs, and that's the beginning of it. Compassion is another extension whereby the movement to help goes forward. So empathy is the first part where it's acknowledged. It's not looking the other way, it's not denying anything's happening. That would be different. Empathy is going, I realize you have a need.
That's a strong example of empathy in action. The rescue of Jewish children through the Kindertransport highlights the profound impact of recognizing and addressing another's distress. It underscores how empathy, when coupled with action, can lead to significant humanitarian efforts. For an alternative case study, consider the efforts of the International Red Cross during natural disasters. When a major earthquake hits, the Red Cross quickly mobilizes resources, understands the immediate needs of affected communities, and provides aid. This response illustrates empathy by not only acknowledging the victim's suffering, but also actively working to alleviate it, demonstrating empathy in a global crisis.
Okay, let's have a new subject and a new tactic to try just for me, please, and I'll give you my response. And then you can give me feedback and an alternative way to answer.
Sure. Let's go with the topic of forgiveness and the tactic of comparison.
A good example and a strong illustration for showing the effects of forgiveness could be, for example, in one case there was a monk and he was asked to look after Western meditators. Western meditators were asked by the abbot to queue up under blazing hot sun in order that a VIP monk visiting would have a show of Westerners who were currently meditating. Although they weren't meditating at that point, they were just standing like statues waiting for this VIP in his car. There was a lot of delays somehow in the traffic, and this waiting went from 15 minutes to 30 minutes to 45 minutes. People had been standing still for 45 minutes, nearly getting on for an hour. Now, among those meditators, there were two sisters. They were twins, and they were from London with blonde hair, same size, identical twins. So, unbeknownst to the monk who went off to start the reportings of the interviews, one of the girls collapsed because of the heat. She fainted, and she was standing on steps. So, therefore, her fall was quite far. So, the news only came to the monk in the reporting room that someone had fainted and had been taken to hospital. Unbeknownst to him, it was one of these twins. During the reporting times, which went on from before 12 o'clock up till beyond 2 o'clock, the people came in one at a time to report that took 5 to 10 minutes to report on their meditation. No great number of meditators, 25 to 30 meditators perhaps. So the incident had actually, slipped his mind. In came the last meditator. It was the girl who had just returned from the hospital. She did her 3 bows, and signing the register for her name, she's the only person there, the monk asked her, without looking at her, how is your experience? How is your meditation? Turned round as she lifted her head up, and he saw that she had 2 black eyes and white tape all over her. Unbeknownst to him, the surprise caught him like something that was hilariously funny, and he burst into life because she seemed to look like a panda bear. And the shame of this was that as he looked round the room to the other monks in there, they were all very stern. This was actually a totally inappropriate response of hilarious laughter and finding her predicament, or the appearance of how she looked, to be something that was highly amusing. The meditator was very stern and very serious with the two black eyes and the bandages. The meditation interview went on, the teacher finished and the meditator monk went back to his cottage. However, this came as such a shock to him, the fact that he had roared with laughter in the face of this person's discomfort and disease, and that he was almost on the verge of disrobing and deciding he wasn't cut out to be a monk. He went afterwards, therefore, to see the teacher, more or less to say, "That's it, I am not suitable to be a monk. I was laughing at someone's pain who had fallen flat on their face." Yet the teacher, with enormous compassion, enormous understanding and sympathy, simply said, extend your mercy, and then just carry on. Don't worry too much about it. And this was a signal for the monk to be able to forgive themselves. Once a person can forgive themselves, sometimes that is the hardest thing to do, because our sense of inner criticism and our expectations could be so high that finding that nature, to finding that voice where, in spite of doing wrong and inappropriate things, a person can forgive themselves and move on. Because clinging and hanging on to regret and self-hatred and self-condemnation will never work to change the behavior and move on. It would be possible to speak to the girl, the lady who had collapsed flat on her face, and say, "I'm very sorry, I do apologize. Do you forgive me? I really shouldn't have laughed. It wasn't the right thing at the right time. I do apologize. I was very inappropriate." And they, I'm sure, would have stepped forward and say, "It's quite okay, I understand. It was just one of those things. I forgive you."
That's a compelling narrative illustrating forgiveness. The contrast between the monk's initial reaction and the subsequent opportunity for self-forgiveness is well depicted. You effectively capture the importance of extending mercy to oneself as a step towards personal growth and healing. One point to refine could be the clarity around the emotional journey of the monk. Maybe emphasize his internal struggle and how he navigates it to highlight the transformative power of forgiveness. Here's an alternative take. You might narrate the same story, but focus on the emotional impact of the monk's realization and his process of seeking forgiveness from the affected meditator. This could illustrate how self-forgiveness often requires a sincere attempt to make amends and show genuine remorse. Would you like to explore another topic and tactic?
I would. Let's move on.
Great. Let's get a new topic and tactic for you to work with. How about courage as the topic and analogy as the tactic?
A good example of courage depicted as an analogy. So courage is like a sword and a shield. That if you have courage, or if you summon up courage, you have the strength to move forward to meet the dragon. The dragon in this analogy may be your own fears, your fear of rejection, your fear of inadequacy, your fear of being rejected or being shunned, your fear of not being able to succeed, not being able to be good enough. All of these things. So courage is realizing that fears gain strength from your fear. Like a lion actually seems to be much, much fiercer the more that you are afraid of it. Okay, so when you have a shield and then you have a sword of wisdom and a shield of common sense and investigation, you can then penetrate your fears with your wisdom and with your clarity of mind, and then you can dispel the fogginess and the flames that emerge from its mouth. And using courage, you can defeat fear. The fear which gives crippling shyness, the fear that gives cowardice and hesitation to go forward to that which may be easily successful. The terror of the other people, the terror of making a fool of yourself. These kind of fears can be dispelled with courage, and courage has love with it, loving kindness. It has compassion with it. These are strengths of courage, which is opposite from fear and doubt, anxiety. That's my solution.
That's a vivid analogy. Courage as a sword and shield, equipping you to face and defeat fears, works well to illustrate the power of bravery and resilience. The sword of wisdom and shield of common sense can certainly help one navigate and overcome challenges. If you're ready for another topic and tactic, just let me know.
One last one, as I want to make these videos about 20 minutes long, 15 to 20 minutes long. So one more example and of a topic and a tactic, and then we'll close for this video.
Sure, how about focusing on the topic of resilience and using the tactic of contrast? You could compare someone who shows great resilience in the face of adversity with someone who crumbles under similar pressures. This contrast can highlight the qualities and mindset that contribute to resilience versus those that lead to giving up.
Okay, so a good example of a way to illustrate the nature of resilience, which is the bounce back, is when you are faced with adversities, when you're faced with challenges. Some people simply cannot get back up again. They simply lay down and give up. Some people are able to bounce back. There's an example of this is something like a boxer's punch bag, which is on a spring, which when pushed away, springs back again. So this is the bounce back, or a bouncing ball. Thrown down, it bounces back up again. This is what we need to have internally in order to be able to recover from bullying, to recover from financial hardship, to be able to recover from unfair unemployment, or to be able to recover from a storm, or a fire, or a bad government, or a loss of an unexpected loss of someone who's dear to us. So bouncing back means that you don't stay crumpled, you move back. For example, there was a case where there was the typhoon that hit Japan with a tsunami, and it destroyed many houses along the front.
That's a strong illustration of resilience. The analogy of the punch bag or bouncing ball effectively shows how resilience allows one to recover from setbacks. You can enhance this by detailing how specific individuals or communities, like those affected by the typhoon in Japan, demonstrated resilience by rebuilding and supporting each other. This will provide a concrete example of bouncing back from severe adversity.
Okay, so in the example of the tsunami in Japan, when the wave hit, it destroyed many houses along the fronts. And some people, that was it. They were crumpled, they were destroyed. Everything that they had seen around them that represented their success and what they'd been building up was gone and was destroyed or was laying around in tatters. But there was one lady who was actually seen going around, and she had a tray with tea and small teacups and also small tea lights as well, little candles. And she was handing, because there was blackout after that. So she was able to go up to people who were sitting on the curb outside their destroyed houses, crying at the loss of friends and family and daughters and sons and husbands and all of their wreckage that was around them, and able to offer them consolation, offer them tea light, and offer them a hot drink. And even to say, it's not so bad. It isn't so bad. It reminds us, actually I quite like it. It reminds me of the time before we had electricity, when everyone would go around with candles. It's not so bad after all. Nothing is permanent. Everything comes and goes. There we go. She had bounced back, and for her, the situation could be looked at as okay, even with all of the destruction and loss around her. This is resilience versus unresilience, or lack of resilience, means that a person stays down and they can only get caught in a swirl of negativities that goes and feeds cycles and cycles.
That's a powerful illustration of resilience. The story of the woman offering tea and candles in the aftermath of the tsunami beautifully highlights how resilience involves maintaining hope and compassion even in the face of immense adversity. It contrasts sharply with those who might remain overwhelmed by their loss, showcasing how resilience can transform a dire situation into a moment of human connection and solace. This example clearly demonstrates the strength and positivity that resilience can bring to challenging circumstances.
Okay then, let's call that a day with this one. Thank you very much, Sky, for assisting me to be able to sort of run some of these topics out and give your reflections in on it. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you once again for listening, everyone who's been watching the video, and thank you to Sky for assisting me.
You're welcome. It's been great working through these topics with you. I'm glad we could explore them together. Thanks to everyone watching, and have a great day.